Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Open Book. I am Billy Price, co-founder of BILLY Footwear. And before I introduce our guest, I want to give you a little bit of background on my story. I spent so many summers going to camp and so many summers being a camp counselor. So I have a special place in my heart for anyone that has anything to do with camp, let alone someone that is a camp counselor. So joining me today on screen, we have Miss Aimee Adler. She is the program director of Camp Dream Street, Mississippi. Welcome, Aimee.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. I'm so excited.
So there's so many things we can chat about, but I think a great place to start here would be, what is Camp Dream Street, Mississippi?
Yeah, absolutely. So Camp Dream Street, Mississippi, we are a 5-day, 4-night sleepaway camp for kids with physical disabilities, primarily things like spina bifida, cerebral palsy, different things like that. We were founded in 1975, so we've been around for a good little bit. Our campers are typically between the ages of 8 to 14 years old. Sometimes, if there's a really mature 7-year-old, we'll take them, but that's typically the age range. Our kids come from really all over the South, mainly Mississippi, Louisiana, some kids from like Western Tennessee, where I'm from, in Memphis. We have kids that come from Texas. We had one camper for a while that was coming from Arizona. So we'll take you from wherever you are, but a lot of times because of, it's a pain to travel. So, especially only for a week-long camp. So typically they are just from all over the South. Our campers attend completely for free, so there's no charge to camp, which I love. And our staff are all volunteers, so our counselors are volunteers. We have a volunteer medical staff. I'm a volunteer, so this is not my normal. This is my extra job, I guess. It's one of my favorite jobs, but I'm definitely not paid. But I'm paid in love, so it's definitely worth it.
So I think that is absolutely incredible. The part that, everything about what you just said is incredible, but the part that I think is particularly special is the volunteer part. To be able to put time aside, to be able to pay, give back and, help, and just the labor of love. How, where did the counselors come from? What ages? I'm just kind of curious to know how you got involved.
Yeah, so our counselors, so basically kind of how this whole thing works. So Camp Dream Street is sponsored by Nifty Southern. It's the Jewish youth group of the South. They cover Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, West Tennessee, and the Florida Panhandle. So not deep into Florida, just the Panhandle. So our counselors basically are that whole group. It's a group of high schoolers. I got involved because I was, a part of that youth group. Where Dream Street is, where we have camp, our campgrounds are on the grounds of Henry S. Jacobs Camp. It's a camp in Utica, Mississippi. So if you're ever driving from Memphis to New Orleans, that's about the halfway point. It's that. I don't really regularly stop there. I used to drive to New Orleans a lot because I went to Tulane, but I normally would stop in Jackson instead of Utica, but Utica is the actual halfway point of your drive. So I had heard about it, growing up, and because that was, the summer camp I attended as a camper myself, and then, being a part of the youth group, everyone said, oh, you've got to apply to Dream Street. It's such a great thing. It's a good experience, whatever. And I was okay. My friends are doing it. I love being at camp. Sounds fun. Okay. And I knew that I wanted to be able to do, I thought it was really cool that I could impact someone else's camp memories in the same way that my counselors were a really big part of my camp memories. They used to be my role models when I was a child. And I guess they are still now because I still remember them all. But I was I want to be able to do that for somebody else. So I applied to be a counselor, and I was a counselor for 3 summers. And then I kind of just kept going back as a staff member and writing programs, leading activities, and just sort of worked my way up. They honestly they just couldn't get rid of me. I feel I just kept coming back, and they were oh, I guess Aimee Adler's coming back again. Oh, Amy's coming back. And so that's kind of how my assistant director, Ashley, she's sort of the same way. We both joke that now we don't really have any other friends our age at camp anymore, but it's fine. We're friends with all the campers. We're friends with all the staff, but we just kept coming back and no one could get rid of us.
I can relate to so much you're talking about. Wow, it just gets in your blood. It absolutely gets in your blood. And the part that, total side tangent here, I did not know you went to Tulane. So many of my friends went to Tulane. I'm out of Seattle, but so many of my friends went to Tulane, and a lot of those friends were camp friends. So to be able to go down there in New Orleans, visit them at Tulane, and reminisce on camp, I mean, everything you're talking about is just bringing back so many memories.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, no, I love that.
So the campers, I mean, so let me talk about the camp one more time. So it sounds like it's a camp. The camp itself, it spans for many weeks, but this volunteer Camp Dream Street is just 1 week.
Correct.
Was the tail end of the summer, or like more towards the front?
So it's before Jacob's Camp actually really kicks off their summer. So I like to think of it personally that like we are the best way to kick off your summer, because I think that like to be a volunteer staff member, you have to want to be there, because there's nothing getting you there besides like your just desire to be there. You're not getting paid. There's like, I don't know, there's no like benefits, I guess. But so I think we like bring the most energy, and we're the best way to kind of, you know, start the summer. And then I think like the Jacob's Camp, their staff comes normally like during like our like end of our week, sort of. They start having some of their staff come in, and then they start their summer normally like a week or two after. So I guess they open up camp a little bit early for us, but I think we're worth it. I think they do too. I mean, we've been doing it there the entire time. So
awesome. Well, I know you have a website and you have some social channels, so let's plug those now. Let's start with your website.
Yeah, so our website, it's in the bottom right there, but dreamstreetms.org.
And then on Facebook?
It is also Dream Street MS.
And then lastly, Instagram.
It is Camp Dream Street MS right there.
So the types of campers that come to camp, I know you mentioned kind of the geographical area, but can you talk about, you know, because I know it's tailored for someone with a physical disability. So for example, I'm in a wheelchair. I have a spinal cord injury. I've looked at the pictures. I've seen the activities. I'm so incredibly jealous. It just looks incredible. So, I mean, would someone with a spinal cord injury, like cerebral palsy, I mean, let's kind of like go through some of the campus you've had.
So, I mean, like I can tell you like the general gist of like, you know, cerebral palsy, spina bifida, spinal cord injuries, you know, like any type of like limb deficiency. Like there's a lot of like, you know, like we span a lot of like needs, but you know, it is also like if you like, you know, maybe you're not sure if you fit into one of those categories. Like we do have a team that, you know, does our camper recruitment that kind of like help like feed out like, are we a good fit for you? Are we not a good fit for you? Just because like, you know, like everyone has different needs. We want to make sure like we obviously like my dream is that we would have to turn people away because we don't have enough beds, not because we don't have like enough interest. So like, that's kind of how it works. I mean, like we can make anything work for you. I think from like a camper perspective, like, you know, you want to go on a horse. You've never done that before. You don't know how. We'll figure out a way. You want to make sure you learn how to tie your shoes this summer. Like we'll figure out a way for you to do that. Like I've seen so many people do things that for the first time. And like, even if it's something that like I've seen people, you know, hold their own toothbrush and brush their teeth for the first time. And I've also seen people, you know, learn to swim for the first time. And like a lot of those like first times are really, you know, they're really special to them, and they're special for me to watch, but also from someone who grew up attending summer camp myself. I think that's even more special because I remember like being a camper and like doing things for the first time then. I mean, I grew up being like I went to my first summer at camp, I was 8 years old. And I remember up until then, I was really shy in school. I never talked. I would only raise my hand if I 100% knew the answer. I'm still kind of like that part, but I'm definitely more outgoing and more talkative. And that really just like I became like that from being at camp. Like I was away from my parents. I was away from my siblings. Like I didn't have anyone to, you know, tell me like, oh, Aimee, don't you want to do this? Like, no, I was making those decisions myself and in charge of making my own friends. And like, I attribute camp to doing that. And like, you know, after graduation, I moved to New York City, and I attribute the fact that I went away to camp, which is why I was able to go to New York City and be okay, you know, figuring it out myself. So it's really special to watch other people have those first times, even if they're different than whatever mine were, still at camp though.
Right. Wow. That's incredible. That is so awesome. And those breakthrough moments, especially like when you're growing up like that young and stuff with your friends and stuff, or meeting new people. I mean, that is just so important. I mean, the camp that I worked at, it was the Boy Scout camp, and there was a pier that went out into the water, and depending on like the level of the tide, it could be a pretty big jump. And it's to be able to jump off that pier into the water. I mean, that's just overcoming that fear and just like challenging yourself. And I know there's a lot of campers that go to that particular camp. It's called Camp Parsons. that to have those kind of breakthrough moments in it, they never forget it. I mean, you have someone that's 12 years old and they remember it when they're 60 years old coming back to visit.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's just as powerful then as it was like in the moment when they were doing it. So that's awesome.
For sure.
So, I was going to say, what was I going to say? I lost it. I totally lost it. Wow. That doesn't happen. That totally doesn't happen very often. Well, okay. So, how did we land on your radar? How did Billy Footwear land on your radar?
Yeah. So I like my family will tell you, my friends will tell you, I don't stop thinking. I don't stop doing. I'm always thinking about the next thing. I'm always thinking about how can we make things better than what they were. And whether that's like in my work, for camp, for like anything, that's what I'm always thinking about. And so I was, we had kind of figured out, this was going to be another virtual summer just because like we weren't sure how the vaccine rollouts were going to be and everything. So I was like, what are like cool things going on that like my campers would like? What are things that they would like this year or next year? Or like what's like going on? So I'm looking at like, all of the like, like adaptive bikes and boats and stuff like that. I'm looking at all the like equipment and like I'm looking at it all on Instagram, just different like brands of things, looking at videos of how different things work. And then in the like suggested on Instagram was Billy Footwear. And I was like, why are they like putting shoes here? Like what is going on? Like, and like, I know Instagram and Facebook, all those things, I know they're watching me because like the minute I start looking up something, all my ads become that. Like, I know that like for sure. So I was like, what are they onto? What are they onto now? So I click on, I'm like, okay, like they're onto something. Like this is pretty cool. And like, I was like in love with like how like the shoes worked and I loved the colors and like I grew up wearing uniforms in my public school. And so like shoes were the only thing that you could have that was like fun and colorful. So like, as like you and I talked about earlier, like a couple of days ago, like I love like a statement piece. So like a shoe and like when I was growing up was kind of my statement piece. Like I would go, we have a big Nike outlet in Memphis and I would go to this Nike outlet and I would basically like be with my dad. I remember and I'd be like, let's find the craziest colors. Like let's find the shoes that are neon pink and neon blue. And those are the shoes I want to wear. And like, he was like, yeah, okay. Like that's still considered a uniform because the uniform didn't span your shoes and like, let's do it. So then I saw these shoes for you, like from Billy Footwear. And I was like, these are so fun. The kid shoes are so sparkly. Like, I was like, what? I was like, how do I I need to connect with these people in some capacity because like, I just need to put myself on their radar, like for camp or just for me, because like, I love them.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. And as we talked about earlier, the way your foot size is perfect because it lands in both the kid sizing and the women's sizing. So you basically have shoes of the entire litter, which is amazing.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
So I did remember what I was going to say. Because 2020, it was a very odd year for the planet, being a COVID year, and we weren't really able to meet in person. So a lot of virtual type things were in the works. I know Camp Dream Street had a virtual program. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually kind of, I would say, made the call for virtual camp a little bit later than I would have normally liked. We kind of made that call, I think, in about April of last year. But I remember it was probably January 2020 when like we were first starting to hear about the rumblings of COVID. And my mom had called me and she said, Aimee, what if Dream Street doesn't happen this year? And I was like, that's crazy. I was like, you're crazy. There's no way that's not going to happen. I was like, COVID. I was like, they're just making this up. Like, no way. Like, no. Okay, well, update. COVID becomes a big thing. And I was like, moms are always right. They are always right. And so basically it gets to be about April-ish of 2020. And my assistant director and I were talking about it. We were like, we can't just not do anything. Like, that's stupid. We were like, that's crazy. That's stupid. Like, we were like, we got to be able to throw something together. Like, what can we do? And so we were sitting there, we were on the phone for hours probably. And I was like, I don't know. And we had realized, we were like, oh, like, why don't we just do like camp at home? Like, so we basically like, sent out to all of our parents, like, here's what we're planning on doing. Like, let us know if your kid's interested. And like, we did Zoom activities all week. I think we did like 4 or 5 a day. And we sent out to every camper a box with all of the supplies they needed. So that was like one thing that was really important to us, just because like, our camp is free for all of our campers to attend. So we wanted to make sure that like everybody had access to any supplies that was needed for the week. So we did that. It was like we sent out 37 boxes last summer, which was really exciting, especially because it was just a short turnaround. And normally in our summers, we have somewhere between like 50 and 60 kids. So like getting 37, I was like, okay. I was like, I'm happy with this. This is all good. And then we were fortunate enough that we realized this went really well. Let's do something again in the winter. So in the winter, we actually did just like a 2-day kind of like winter activities. There was no materials needed for it, and it was really kind of like come and go as you want. And the kids that participated in it really liked it. They had a really good time. And I think for them, they were like, oh my gosh, I can see my camp friends during the year. This is crazy. Like they loved that. So I'm hoping that we're going to do that again. And then for this summer, we are sending boxes again. We're doing this time, instead of 4, I think, activities a day, we're doing 5 activities a day. And we've got, activities that like our staff members have written that are really fun and cool. And we also have some extra like fun activities. We have Happy Birds, which is a parrot show that's supposed to, these parrots like ride bikes and they open soda cans and they raise flagpoles. They do all these like really cool things that I just like am still kind of shocked that they're birds that do them, because I feel like as a human I can barely do some of those things. Like I can't ride a bike, so like a parrot riding a bike, I'm like, whew, that is some talent. And a magician and different things like that. And so we're sending out boxes to all of our campers for this summer. And we have, I believe it's 52 that we're sending out this summer, to my knowledge. 52 like camper boxes, yeah.
Well, one thing that's so incredible now with now that everyone's had to like basically forced to get used to using like video conferencing or Zoom or whatever. I mean, FaceTime or whatever you want to use. It's amazing how much farther you can stretch, you can reach. So all of a sudden you can engage with people, not just in the South area, like near kind of like where you're at. You can really throw whatever that same camp experience, domestic, like anywhere in the United States, but also international too, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a camper this summer coming that applied from Canada. So we're really excited to send them a box. Hopefully, like, I don't really know how it works when you ship stuff like that far away, like if like customs holds it or whatever that works, but hopefully that doesn't happen. But I mean, like my dream would be that like we could span as far as we can go and like anywhere. I mean, it's hard. I think for having live programming, you have to think about people's time zones. Right. But other than that, I feel like it's fine. Like, I don't really know, like I would love us to have people in like Australia or something, but I also know that's like a 12-hour time change. So I don't know. That like actually could work though. Like if it was 8 a.m. here, they could do an evening program. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is going out live to people around the world. So hopefully there's someone from Australia chiming in. They can learn about the camp, and I don't know, who knows? Maybe we'll find a camper coming in from Australia. That'd be incredible.
Oh my God, I would love that. I would probably cry. I'd be like, that's so cool.
So Aimee, again, I mean, I just appreciate everything you're doing. I mean, camp just has it's in my blood. I just love it. There's so many amazing memories from camp, and there's so many. I mean, not only going as a counselor, but also as a camper. I mean, there are just so many just like hurdles that, unbeknownst to me, I had crossed early on, and then later in life, you get faced with these challenges, and it seems to boil back to like some experience or some overcoming or some positive experience or some sort of challenge you had at camp that you were able to break through. It just all seemed to revolve back to camp. So it just I just believe so strongly in camp, and I just love everything that you're doing as a program director as well. And then, all your volunteers, it's just really, really neat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the kids make it all worth it. They are so much fun, and they are so silly, and like, they love being there. Like so much, you can't not be in a good mood. Like I always tell everyone, I'm like, it's the happiest place on earth. It's better than Disney World. Like we say there's the Dream Street magic, and that's how everything gets done. And that's how, nothing's ever a big deal.
That's so good. Well, before we sign off, I want to give you the mic one last time to share whatever's on your heart. I mean, we covered a lot of ground, but we can talk about something we already talked about or something new. So, but one last chance, the mic is yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think like just the biggest like takeaway from all of this, and like especially from my camp experience, as a camper, a counselor, in this case, a program director, is just I've learned from being at camp, what I love about it is that everyone is so accepting of other people. You can really just show up and be yourself, and there's no one judging you. There's no popularity. There's no cool kids. Like there's nothing like that at camp, which I think is why so many people, do try new things for the first time at camp. And I think that's just a lesson we should really be taking with us throughout our lives. I know, like, naturally as humans, we want to judge everyone. We want to judge everyone we see. We want to make up all the stories in our head about them and stuff like that. But it's so much easier and honestly more fun to get to know people if you just kind of like let them come as they are and just accept them as they are and like build a relationship that way.
Oh, wow. That was so eloquent. That's beautiful. I mean, you're absolutely 100% spot on. So that's great. Well, Aimee, again, thank you so much for your time today. This was a real treat.
Thank you for having me.
Everyone else who was chiming in today, this is another episode of Open Book. So we'll have another one next week. Until then, take care.